Welcome in to episode 43 of Ramie and Drew Live. I am the Ramie half of that, Ramie Mackloff. That's Drew Flaggy. We're just a couple of Milwaukee comedians. We talk sports and whatever other bullshit might come to mind. And Drew, it's been a few days since we got together. Last time we talked, Bucks got a win, but Giannis went down with the injury, and we had mixed feelings about all of it. You weren't feeling too great about the win, even if Giannis didn't get injured, because the Celtics weren't putting a lot of stock into that game. But since then, Giannis's injury turns out not to be worst case scenario. They say the Achilles is intact. He'll probably miss the rest of the regular season. It's a 1 to 2 week recovery based on, whatever variables go into it. And with Giannis, I feel pretty good that it's going to be a week. He's not human. So I feel good about that. And then they get the win over Orlando. And Drew, I was in Madison. I was in the Madison's Funniest Comic competition. Felt great about my set. Didn't move on. Thank you to everybody who came out and supported anyways. But that I didn't see the game, but following, it seemed like a feel-good win, man. You beat Orlando, who's right on your heels for the 2 seed. Looked like a great night for Bobby, looked like a great night for Dame, and a solid night for Jay Crowder off the bench.
Yeah. So the big story was obviously Bobby Portis filling in for Giannis starting. It wasn't like he just came off the bench. It wasn't like they used Jay Crowder, and also no Chris Middleton in that game also.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right. Yeah, I did see that. Yep.
So Bobby Portis was the hero Bobby Portis said he is at home. Like that was absolutely the performance that you need. That we know he's capable of on a nightly basis. But I mean, he was incredibly efficient too. I think he was 2 for 2 from 3. What was he, like 13 of 17 or something from the floor?
I have the box score up here in a second.
He had just a great night on both ends of the floor. The Bucks, everybody they threw at Paulo Banchero really held him in check. No Franz Wagner last night for them, but Mo Wagner was in there, and that guy is not the same as his brother.
No.
He sucks. But Jalen Suggs, he was out there to win last night. Like I kind of joke about Jalen Suggs once in a while because I do pick him on underdog, but I usually take unders. Jalen Suggs was out there to hoop yesterday, and even like Jonathan Isaac was he was making some pretty great defensive plays in that game and just getting good stops with his length and stuff. But the Bucks just outplayed Orlando, and that was one of those games where watching the entire game, the Bucks just showed top to bottom that they can out talent anybody. If they got to hurt Giannis, they can out talent that team. Also, by the way, my feel good thing about the Celtics, they kind of rolled over tonight on the Knicks. Also, they didn't come to play tonight either.
I saw that.
Celtics. So they're taking a knee, and I saw that some of our favorite little talking heads, our favorite little piggies on ESPN, they were all talking about, oh, the Celtics kind of took a knee against the Bucks. They did. They were not out there. They were out there to play a game of basketball. I'm not going to say they tried to lose a game, but they weren't trying to go 100% and win a game. So, And again, tonight with the Knicks, they kind of just took the night off again, just play basketball, whatever happens, happens, and the Knicks needed to win. And that's pretty much what happened. I'm pretty sure the Knicks won. They were up by like 20 also.
But you know what? If Boston, yeah, they were. If Boston wants to cruise control into the playoffs, and plus now because of the play-in tournament, you got that week in between the end of the regular season and the start of the actual playoffs. If they want to coast into the playoffs and then take a week off and think that a team with really no championship pedigree and a team that, let's be real, they have a history or a tendency of not stepping up in big moments, and some of their best players have that label hanging over them. If they think they can just flip the switch come playoff time after cruising through the last 10 games of the regular season and taking that week off between the end of the regular season and the playoffs, I welcome that as a Bucks fan. I say you guys go right ahead and shut everybody down.
Well, right. And then the other thing too was Damian Lillard is questionable for tomorrow.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bucks are going to try to beat Orlando on Sunday, and I think they're going to rest a lot of people tomorrow and just kind of lose that game to OKC.
Yeah.
Again, this is just get into the playoffs healthy, because the Bucks really all they have to do is beat Orlando again, and that's actually going to be the bigger test this weekend. Is going to be Sunday. How does Bobby Portis play on the road against Orlando in a playoff atmosphere, against a playoff team, possibly a higher seeded team? This is where Bobby Portis is going to really show you, I think, what he can do coming into the playoffs under Doc's system. And I'll say a big part of that might be Pat Bev being on the floor with him to keep pumping everybody up.
Yeah.
I think that game last night, I mean, Pat Beverly, fantastic again, just as being a second point guard out there, just the way that guy just sees the game and the energy. The actually in that game last night. And I
Yeah, you were asking about Bobby's stat line earlier. 14 of 18 last night. He grabbed 9 rebounds. He had 30 points. Yeah, he was just amazing. And then Pat Bev in 30 minutes. He was 4 of 6, put in 13 points. And of course, he brings the defense. He dished out 6 assists. So it was really a case of Giannis went down and everybody kind of stepped up to fill that void and seem to step their game up and get that win. And it's a big win, Drew. And I think that you're right when you say that they pretty much have Orlando circled on their schedule right now as far as putting this thing away and hanging on to that 2 seed. One more win against, well, I don't think Orlando is catching you now anyways, but really just one more win, I think, in these last 3 games puts you in probably the 2 seed. The Knicks are a game behind you in the loss column. Cleveland is 2 games behind you in the loss column. If you can get 1 or 2 more wins in these last 2 games, I don't think the Knicks catch you and you hang on to that 2 seed.
I don't think it necessarily really matters 100%. And I mean, even like now it's to the point where I would rather have the health. I think healthy, the Bucks they match up with just about everybody. I don't think that there's a problem that they would have running into anybody in the playoffs healthy, with healthy Giannis, healthy Middleton, all of his teeth in his mouth, Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Damian Lillard with whatever they're saying he has hurt tomorrow, his abductor strain or something like that. Healthy Dame, I'm not ruling out any one of these guys. I think they're all going to be fine. I think Indiana is the easier matchup. I do think Miami's beatable, and I mean the matchup I still would rather have is Jimmy Butler and Giannis to get like on each other. Mm-hmm. I want Giannis and Jimmy Butler, because that's what we did.
You want to exercise those demons? You want to exercise those Jimmy Butler?
No, I want to
demons.
What we did in 2021 when Giannis played defense on Jimmy Butler and held him to just absolutely putrid shooting. Jimmy Butler was terrible in that series. That's when we won it all that year. He was really bad. Remember, we
talked plenty of. Yeah, I remember. We talked plenty about it, and I don't worry about anybody, but we both prefer the easiest path through the playoffs. You know what I mean? And the 2 seed does get you home court advantage in the first 2 series of the playoffs. If you move on, where the 3 seed you're not necessarily guaranteed that, but end of the day, Indiana is the easiest matchup out of them. Philadelphia or Miami, one of those 3 teams will be your matchup in the first round. And for me, Indiana is the easiest of the 3. And if you sit a few guys and lose a few games because of it and end up with Indiana, that actually might be best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Bucks fans are a little bit traumatized by what happened with Indiana with the in-season tournament stuff, but like I said, I wrote off the entire beginning of the season. I'm going to hold to that. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy Indiana for a second. I mean, Doc's defense is still a better defense than what Adrian Griffin had going on. I'm not afraid of Miles Turner. I'm not afraid of Pascal Siakam. I'm not afraid of. They don't have Buddy Hield anymore. I'm not afraid of Tyrese Halliburton. I know everyone seems to be afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him. He's kind of garbage.
I don't know if he's garbage, but no, I don't fear him. And like we talked about at the start of the show, Giannis should be back for the playoffs for that first round matchup, especially with, like I mentioned, the week off in between the end of the regular season and the start of the actual playoffs while the play-in tournament is going on. You should have a pretty healthy Giannis by then, based on what I'm reading about the recovery timetable of this injury that he has. What is the calf strain? It's a muscle in his calf. I forgot which one it is. The soleus muscle in his calf, and we know he's not human. So it looks like you'll have Giannis ready to go for the first round of the playoffs, which is great news, man. I was ready to light this thing. I was ready to spark up the Giannis prayer candle. We're gonna go ahead. We'll hang on to it. I don't want to break that out for no good reason. You know what I mean? You save that thing for when you really need it. But I'm glad I don't have to light the candle, Drew.
I think, well, okay, so the other thing is unofficial, but like also he's been pretty on top of these injury reports.
Mm-hmm.
At Bev podcast, Patrick Beverly, their
I've heard of him.
clinic brought in, he said that Giannis is cool. He's good. He's good to go. He's going to be
Oh,
there.
good.
That's what Pat Bev said on the Pat Bev podcast with Roan. So shouts out to them. They know more. I mean, Pat Bev was the one that broke the news that Pat Bev got traded to Milwaukee.
That is
He's
true.
also
Yeah.
the one that broke the news that Pat Bev will be playing with a torn ligament in his wrist. And he was the first one to drop 20 points in one game and also appear on the Pat Bev podcast. So I have entire faith in whatever's going on over there.
That guy seems to have good sources. That show seems to have good sources. They're usually right.
He's like the most inside man that you can get. And so I'm just going to believe.
Did you see what he said about when they asked him what the two back-to-back wins after losing 6 of 7 means? And he said just shows you how smart a move it was for Doc Rivers to put me in the starting lineup.
Yeah, dude. I'm one of my favorite podcasts. It's so funny. But yeah, no, like I think it's gonna be. I'm a little bit more. I don't know. I want to say confident. I feel better about where they're sitting right now, just because they beat up Orlando a little bit. I'm of course
based on some of the quotes I was reading from the locker room after the win against Orlando yesterday, these guys, like Drew, I know you weren't putting a lot of stock into that win, and Pat Bev made that comment sort of half jokingly about what it says that they've won these last 2 games, but I think that it's got to feel good for those guys because remember coming out of the second half when they started off so hot, and I think it was Chris Middleton who said that they just started blocking out all the noise, or all the noise had sort of died down when they started playing better. So that tells you that they were hearing the noise in the first half. And when you lose 4 games against 4 teams that you shouldn't lose against, and you've lost 6 of 7, there you just brought it up a little bit ago, about some of our favorite talking heads on the 4-letter network. People get to talking, man, and that can easily get in your head. That could easily affect the way that you come out and play. To get these 2 wins back to back against the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and then one of the teams that was nipping at your heels for the number 2 seed, I think it does sort of get a monkey off their back as far as how they were feeling about the way that they were playing and their place in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that they didn't feel good about losing to Washington and stuff. Like that sucks. And
yeah,
I mean, I there's not a lot that I think that any player should ever take into account with whatever those 4-letter networks are saying, because they're not watching Bucks games. They don't know what Doc's doing. They just know Doc's playoff record, and then they go, "Oh yeah, Doc sucks." Like that's what the 4-letter networks do. They just regurgitate the same shit that everyone else has to say. Anybody like Austin Rivers, I mean, okay, I get it. It's Doc's son. But Austin Rivers goes on there and says something about like the Bucks are talented, and they all look at him like he's a crazy person. Like all of a sudden, Giannis, Dame, and Chris stop being talented. Like Kendrick Perkins, that looks like fucking news to him. He makes the same face when they say that the McRib is back. He's like, really? Huh? You heard that? Like that's what Kendrick Perkins does. They're so.
We brought
dumb.
this up. We brought this up the other day when they have Pat Bev is in the starting 5 now, but the starting 5 of Giannis, Chris, Dame, Brooke, and Beasley, the most efficient starting 5 in the NBA as far as group starting lineups that have played. I think the number was at least 300 or 500 minutes together. When those guys are out on the court together, which they haven't been a lot. And Drew, I said when everybody was talking about Brooklyn in 2021 and coming into that series against the Bucks, I was like, these guys have played 7 games together all season, right? Like, what makes you think that they're going to be able to put together a playoff run of keeping all those guys on the court? So you could say the same thing about the trio of Giannis, Dame, and Chris, going into the playoffs. Yep. They don't have the track record for us to go, yeah, we can count on them being out there every night as a trio. But when they are out there and when that starting five is out there, it's as good as anybody.
Well, here's the difference between the KD, Kyrie, and James Harden trio above like Giannis, Chris, and Dame. Chris has primarily been the one that's been out.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis is going to end up missing 10 total games this season because he didn't play last.
That. Yeah.
So he's going to miss 10 total games. I think Damian Lillard, if he doesn't play tomorrow, what does he miss? 8? Maybe, if that.
It's been mostly Chris that is not keeping the trio together on the floor.
Like, I don't think Lillard has missed back-to-back games. Giannis didn't really miss back-to-back games until very recently. Like, they're fine. Like, durability isn't the issue with them. It's mostly a freak accident with Chris Middleton. Middleton gets punched in the face, loses a tooth. Or, Kevin Durant, he's still wearing shoes that are a little bit too big for him, and he lands in Chris Middleton's landing zone, and then Middleton rolls his ankle. Like, little shit like that. Like, that's not health issues the way that the Nets had health issues.
Mm-hmm.
That Nets were always back spasm this and ankle injury here and quad hurts and knee hurts and this.
And then
hurts.
with Kyrie, it's not necessarily injuries, but it's always something. And especially at that time, it seemed to always be something with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, he was a part-time employee. I used to joke about him being the world's greatest part-time employee. He just goes up, drops 35, and then he's like, all right, I'm off for a month. And it's like, all right, see ya. But I mean, dude, Kyrie's playing great in Dallas. Like,
yes, he is.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I think the Bucks are in a good position here. I'm not too worried about anybody going into the playoffs. I just want them to get out of the next 2 games healthy.
Speaking of a good position, they're rained out today because they haven't put a roof on it in Cincinnati. But the Brewers got another win yesterday. Drew and a mutual friend of ours, AJ Grill, I saw him at the Madison's Funniest Comic. Also did not move on, which I thought he had a great set, and he and he should have moved on. But and he's been a guest on the show before. Love AJ. He said to me the first thing he said to me last night when we saw each other in the green room, he was like, "So how long until they drug test Christian Yelich?" Because he hit his 5th home run yesterday. Man, that dude. And I said this on a previous episode when we were talking about the Brewers. Like, say that again.
Is it 5 or 4?
5. He's got 5 home runs now, I believe. I'll double check that in a second, but I'm pretty sure he's got 5 home runs now. I was pretty optimistic about this team coming into the season and said that it's a team that will be in the mix for the NL Central. I said it'll be them and the Cubs. And while I understand the disappointment in some of the offseason moves, like, Brewers fans should be really excited about this season. If that guy is back in MVP form in the middle of that lineup, on top of the Rhys Hoskins addition and some other moves that they've made that I really like, that's a game changer, man. That completely puts a different spin on this season, or makes you look through this season through a different prism, or however you want to put it. That's a total game changer if MVP Christian Yelich is back for the Brewers.
Well, of course, if you actually get a guy playing at an MVP level, that's crazy. That's as good as an offseason acquisition. No, actually, the big thing is like So I liked Churio leading off on opening day. I was a big fan of that move. I was like, all right, that's a lot of faith in the young guy. And Pat Murphy said, they didn't want him sitting on the bench dwelling on it. When am I going to get my first hit? And then you come up 9th and then you strike out or you pop up or hit a weak ground ball. And then your confidence is go out there, get as many at-bats as possible, try to get that first hit, get the skunk out of the box. Totally cool with that. Then, they went with the righty-lefty matchup the next day, and Sal Frelick was in the he's in the leadoff spot. I like Frelick. He's not – I always mix up how I'll say his name. But, like, I don't like him in the leadoff spot because I don't think he makes hard enough contact yet. He's so fast. Like, speed is great, but it goes back to the Cincinnati. Billy Hamilton can't steal first. You got to get on first base to steal second.
Right.
So I like Frelick a little bit down in the lineup, but Chris Dunn, now them moving him into the leadoff spot, and Chris Dunn has been hitting, and that's a fun story. Chris Dunn. I think everyone likes Chris Dunn right now. He's kind of like the fun guy that everybody is rallying around. And yeah, I like that Pat Murphy was willing to go, okay, we put Frelick in the leadoff spot, didn't work a couple times. Let's try another guy who's hitting. And maybe Dunn is our leadoff hitter now. Contreras also, that's your guy. You like Contreras?
I do like Contreras.
I will do my Willie Adames report. I like the approach he's had at the plate so far. I was skeptical putting him in the 4 hole because I didn't like his approach last year. I don't like the strikeouts, but Hoskins I think has struck out more times than Willie Adames. So if Willie's going to have a better approach at the plate and make some decent contact, I'm good with him being in the 4 hole.
And that's kind of been Hoskins.
I said it.
Wait, you just said Willie Adames. You're good with Willie Adames in the 4 hole. That's a big breakthrough for the Ramie and Drew show.
So right now, yeah, it's like I'm not all negative and doom and gloom all the time.
All the time. No.
I can be brought back. That's the thing. I'm totally willing to say I was wrong and I can come back. So
I can confirm, Drew, 5 home runs for Christian Yelich, 11 RBI. He's also he's only got 2 more strikeouts than walks. He's got 8 strikeouts to 6 walks and an 1146 OPS. Like, he's just off the charts, dude. And I don't think it's unrealistic or should even be that surprising that Christian Yelich could find his MVP form again. Like, baseball has always been that kind of sport. It's weird, man. Guys lose it for like 1 or 2 years, and then all of a sudden they get it. And injuries play a factor in that. You know what I mean? Before you fully feel yourself again, hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in professional sports. So, like, when you talk about getting in game shape and like fine tuning, you gotta figure that it's harder to do that in baseball and as a hitter than it probably is to come back from an injury in any other sport. When we talk about getting back all the way 100% to game shape. And I'll give you an example of another guy, and you probably don't like this example, but look at Cody Bellinger, man. There are guys all over this league that have MVP like seasons or stretches, then have 2 or 3 down years, and then find that form again. So I'm not all that surprised. Honestly, I've been waiting for this Christian Yelich to come back and show this again.
So the Yelich thing though, that came down to just his approach at the plate. It wasn't so much like he had like a weird lingering injury. It was he broke his kneecap, and I think it was psychological with him. It was he didn't want to take inside pitches. He didn't want to try to drive inside pitches because it was just the most freak accident that could have happened to a guy. And I think he was stepping in the bucket for a while. And then you also had the shortened season, the COVID year, the 65 game season or whatever that was. So that was the year. That was the year after he got hurt, right? That was
yes.
Yeah. So you had an abbreviated season. And it's just he didn't look like he was driving the ball anymore. He looked like he was afraid to take those inside pitches. And it just seemed like a sports psychiatrist thing, not a physical thing. Because it's not like Yelich got out of shape. It's not like he lost muscle. It's not like he wasn't the same guy doing the same stuff. It just seemed like it was in his head.
Yeah,
but also, this many years removed from an MVP season, that's what's more impressive to me, that he's been able to refine that.
When I talk about getting back to that game shape and fine-tuning the little things that made you as great as you were, I'm talking about all of that, Drew. I'm talking about the physical. I'm talking about the mental approach in terms of your at-bats. I'm talking about confidence, which I always say, like, the two situations where confidence plays the biggest factor in all of sports is when a batter stands in a batter's box and when the ball is leaving the fingertips of a shooter in basketball. So I think all of it can take a while to get it all back. And I think you're right when you talk about the mental aspect of it and the type of injury that he suffered and maybe shying away from inside pitches because of it. But again, I'm not all that surprised that this Christian Yelich is back. We got to wrap this up in just a couple minutes. Drew, I did want to read a couple of comments from the YouTube page. We were talking about the Bucks and Indy earlier. Keegan Ford says Indy's been playing way worse too, and yeah, they after the play-in tournament, it seems like it's all leveled off a little bit for Indy.
I think for the overall roster, they have come down a little bit. Siakam's been good. Like, he's averaging probably like 22, 23 a night or something like that. But like I didn't understand them getting rid of Buddy Hield. That was such a weird trade to me. I don't listen. I meme on it. I joke about it. Maybe there's a little bit of salt from the in-season tournament with Tyrese Halliburton and him doing the Dame time, at our bench and everything, thinking that was yes. And Damian Lillard said, just be careful because how quickly the league changes on you. And Tyrese Halliburton, he thought going into All-Star weekend that was his house party. He thought that he was having the best time, and Lillard beat him in the three-point contest. And we all saw how he looked when Damian Lillard beat him. And you had the crowd doing Dame time because regardless if they were Bucks fans or basketball fans or Portland fans, it didn't matter because they were Damian Lillard fans there that all know the show he can put on. So he takes that, and then Halliburton thought he was going out there and winning the MVP. He was skipping around during the All-Star game, and Damian Lillard dropped the most points and ended up also being the MVP of the All-Star game.
All-Star League, All-Star game MVP.
Tyrese Halliburton has not been the same man since.
He's had some injuries he's been struggling with too. And also I just think he was playing over his head a little bit. I mean, that's just the bottom line. He was playing a little bit over his head.
He's a good player, but when he was trying to act like he was catapulting himself into that elite guard level, like that Damian Lillard or that I'll even say James Harden level, or you're going to put yourself up there with like Steph Curry. Dude, you're not those guys yet. You don't have the body of work behind you. Acting like that. Like right now, if Jalen Brunson started doing that kind of stuff, I could see it because he's been averaging like 34 points a game this last 2 weeks. It's crazy what he's doing. And this is like in the most important time for the Knicks with Julius Randle out. Tyrese Halliburton just hasn't been doing it. And I think that coming into the playoffs, he might have bit off a little bit more than he could chew at this point. I don't see him being that big of a factor. Maybe I'm poking the beehive a little bit too much here, but
I just think that that Indy as a whole just sort of leveled off and came back to earth from what they were playing at and I'm not saying that they won't be one of the teams to reckon with in the East in the next few years the way people were talking about earlier in the season, but it's pretty obvious that they're not there now. When you slip all the way to the 6th seed, it's pretty obvious that you're not there now. You're not ready for that jump just yet.
And he doesn't have enough self-starters on that team. Like Miles Turner is never going to give you a night where he might just drop 40 because he's hot. Miles Turner isn't that guy. Siakam might be, and but I mean, who knows how invested Siakam's going to be in sticking around in that roster? Siakam to the Bucks. I've heard that. I've heard he's unhappy. I heard he wants to come here. My sources inside ESPN and the Gilbert Arenas podcast have told me that Pascal Siakam to the Bucks, along in a 3-team trade with Luka for AJ Green. Probably. I know it sucks to part with him, but we're going to get 2 players for one, guys, and we're going to have to figure out how to make it work. I'm reporting that right now. Also, Steph Curry to the Bucks. I do think, and we'll get Bronny and LeBron.
You heard it first here on the Ramie and Drew show.
You heard it first here that we're getting everybody. I think we're going to have a 30-man roster. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be just like the Grizzlies, but we're going to have all superstars. It's
going to be great.
I don't know. I'm not afraid of Indy. In a couple years, probably they'll be good. But like right now, like I said, not enough self-starters.
They're not there yet. They're not in that upper echelon just yet.
No. They're not in that upper echelon. And I don't know who else they have on that team that can, if Halliburton's not going,
one of us is.
They're not
going.
I think that's you. But they're not sure. Going.
Who?
Oh. That you, Ramie, you froze. Oh boy. Oh wait, you're unfreezing.
Oh, there I am. Last comment, and then for many reasons, we're just going to wrap this up. One of them being that the show keeps freezing. My internet keeps freezing. Q wants to know, after a couple weeks, how are you feeling about Craig with the Cubs, Ramie? And Drew, I'm feeling really. I love it. I love watching Craig Counts. I know you don't want to hear this. I know Brewers fans don't want to hear this.
Fine.
I love watching Craig Counsell manage the Cubs, man. It's fun. And I don't need to tell Brewers fans, it's fun to watch that dude manage. And the Cubs, the Cubs have the type of roster, plus a little bit more because of the money that they can spend that the Brewers have had over the years in terms of the versatility of the roster of having 3 or 4 guys that they can move through a couple of positions, and 2 or 3 of those 3 or 4 guys can play both of the positions, and Craig Counsell can kind of move the chess pieces around the board, and the lineup looks a little bit different every day. His bullpen management looks a little bit different every day, and he just, man, it's fun to watch. It's really, really fun to watch, and they're winning. Their approach at the plate, they go deep into counts. They see a lot of pitches. They're getting guys on base.
Are they leading off innings to bunt? Are they bunting? Are they?
No.
Do they have like a guy who's like Blake Perkins who can lay down a bunt in the 6th inning and just get on base?
No, I don't.
Are they,
No, not that I know of.
all right. Well, just wait and see how much you like him when he's not doing baseball shit.
It's really fun to watch, man.
You know
It's really
to watch is, see, this is the thing with I don't want to be like a you Cubs fans thing, just being like, oh, I love watching Craig Counsell be cerebral. You know what I like watching? Christian Yelich at an MVP level. I like actually the hitters. Like loving your team for the manager and being
I love all of it. I love all of it. The strategy of baseball is one of the reasons I fell in love with the sport, and Craig Counsell is a very good strategist.
Dude, you are so one step away from liking umpires, being like, oh, dude, we got a fucking angel.
Fuck umpires. And Q says, because he's a reasonable Brewers fan, says baseball is more fun when the Cubs and Brewers are both competitive at the same time. That's 100% true. And I think the fact that, in my opinion, it's going to come down to those two teams, plus the brand of baseball that both those teams play, is going to make for a really fun race and some really good, meaningful series as we get deeper in the season. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
We got to look at the schedule. Do we end the season against the Cubs this year?
I don't know. They don't have their first series against them till like a month and a half into the season.
You know what?
Hold on, let me pull it up.
I like that.
Say that again.
I like that.
It's just weird. It's because usually they open the season, or it's the first or second series in the season that the Cubs and Brewers play each other. But
I would rather every team kind of settle in, because the one thing that I don't like about an opening series is you're going to have your ace out there, but it's just out of spring training, and maybe he's only throwing kind of fastballs, and maybe he's on like an 85 pitch limit. I don't want to watch fucking. You guys still got Justin Steele, right? I don't want to watch fucking Justin Steele against Freddie Peralta, and both of them are at like a fucking 5-inning pitch count, kind of 85 pitches. That sucks. Give them a month. I would like a month and a half into the season. Let everybody start cooking. Let everybody figure out their rosters, and then the teams that are supposed to be rivals, let them go at it.
Their last series against each other is in July 22nd through the 24th. Cubs closed the season out against the Reds, and the Brewers will close the season out against hold on, give me 1 second here. The Brewers will close the season out against the Mets. 3 at home against the Mets to close out the series after a trip to Pittsburgh.
We don't play the Mets. We bookend the season with the Mets.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Dude, the Cubs better make hay right now, because because the Mets, we're gonna sweep them the fucking last week.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be that has to be worst case scenario for the Cubs, is that the Brewers get to go and face the Mets.
It's gonna be a great race, dude. It's gonna be a great race, and obviously I'm a Cubs fan, but I always say if it's not us, I hope it's you, because fuck the Cardinals. And it's good for the podcast. It's good. I go out and I'll participate in the Brewers celebration party. I don't give a fuck. I don't care if y'all want me there or not. I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna have beers, and we're all gonna have a good time together. You know what I mean? I'm gonna celebrate. I'll celebrate the Brewers with you guys. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's cool. You're allowed to do that, I guess. That's
all
fine.
Right, good. Thank you for the invite. That's Drew Flaggy. I'm Ramie Makloff. This is Ramie and Drew, episode 43. We will talk to you again next time. Drew, any final quick thoughts?
No.
Okay.
Giannis is good, so we're good.
Oh, OJ's dead. We didn't talk about OJ's dead.
Yeah.
Peace out, OJ.
Damn.
Hell of a run, man.
Damn. But, not a good week for killers. I'll tell you that.
Nothing else on that. Twitter's been hilarious today. That's been great. I have a Twitter group chat with a few of my producers, including Simone from my short stint in Sacramento, Simone Rickford, who was a guest on the show here a few weeks ago when the Bucks and Kings played, and it is almost entirely dedicated, Drew, to sharing funny tweets when terrible people die. And it's been a good day. It's been a fun day in the group chat today. It's been great.
That's good.
So good riddance to a murderer and a domestic and a serial domestic abuser in OJ Simpson. Tell us how it is down there, bro. And a what?
And a running back and actor.
Dude, you know what's weird? So when I was a kid, the Naked Gun movies were huge. So like my experience of getting but his playing days were before my time of watching football. So my dad loved watching the Naked Gun movies with me. So my experience of finding out who OJ was hilarious comedic actor. Wait, that guy played football? Holy shit, he's a murderer. Like that was my experience of getting to know OJ, which is a wild way to experience the OJ ride. You know what I mean? It's a crazy way to experience that. That's not the order you're supposed to do that.
No, it's not quite the pipeline that most people go, where it's like unfunny comedian at open mic, murderer.
Drew Flaggy's Facebook friend. Any update on that, by the way?
I will. Okay, that's my last thing I'll say. I will unfriend him when the comment section cools down because I'm taking screenshots. This is called journalism.
Share them on the show then, man. If you're gonna get the screenshots, then share them on the show about the murderer.
I'm not gonna reveal the end of the book until it's written.
Fair.
You got to get all the screenshots because this thing is crazy. True crime podcasts are huge, man. We could take just a couple weeks to dedicate it to this case. Yeah, but they're also not like, hey, Jeffrey Dahmer. So he killed somebody and he got the pots and pans out. Stay tuned for next week. Like, they didn't do that. They're like, nah, he killed him. He cooked him.
All right. This has been Ramie and Drew, episode 43, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.